This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Welcome you guys back to another episode of the GSMC Sports Podcast, presented by GSMC Podcast Network. My name is Chris Blades, and before I get started here today, I want to make sure that I remind you guys, as always, to subscribe to the podcast if you aren't already. Make sure you're always up to date on all the latest stuff we drop, and that you never miss an episode. If you can, be so kind, if you could give us a 5-star rating and review. It allows us to continue to get better, see where we can improve, see what you guys like, see what you guys don't like. And all in all, it was just very appreciated. And if you are a fan of the NFL, then I imagine you appreciated the games we had this weekend, especially today. And I'm just going to jump right into it. The last game, that Green Bay-Seattle game, I mean, that's the game we kind of expected it would be. I mean, as I talked about in the last podcast, Seattle just doesn't get blown out. I think I saw a stat on Twitter. So it's Twitter, so you can't really always assume the stuff is correct. But I believe I saw that across their careers, Russell Wilson and Pete Carroll's career together, I think they've lost 9 total games or something like that by double digits, which is absurd if that is true. But it makes a lot of sense because for whatever reason, their team can't get blown out. Even when they lose, they always find a way to get back into it. And this game is another example of it. I mean, they were losing 21-3 at halftime. The Packers drive down the field first drive, get Davante Adams on a nice double move touchdown from like 20 yards out. And you're just like, oh, okay, clearly the bye week was good for the Packers. I mean, didn't help everybody this weekend, but it was good for the Packers. And, I mean, Seattle just got off to another slow start. I mean, they only had one scoring drive in the first half. They punted on their first 2 possessions, got a field goal on the next one, and then a missed field goal on their last one. Well, the second to last one, because they had one that ended the half. And they obviously didn't get any points on that one. So they tried to throw a Hail Mary, and it didn't work, though. I mean, it looked good. They couldn't come down with it. But I mean, they go into the half down 21-3 after 2 more touchdowns from the Packers, one by Aaron Jones after multiple attempts from inside the 1, and finally able to get it on the third try after they were able to move the ball down the field. And then their third touchdown was, I believe, again by Aaron Jones. Yeah, another 1-yard run by Aaron Jones. This time they were down. We got down inside first and goal for a couple plays. They were able to get Clowney to jump offside on one of the third downs. Though I mean, obviously, it doesn't really matter when you're that close because you can only move up so far. But they were able to get a couple short touchdowns. And yeah, so then Seattle's down 21-3. And I mean, if you watch the game from earlier in the day on Sunday, you know that no lead is safe. You know that teams can come back, and the Seahawks were able to do just that. Not the same way as the game earlier on Sunday, but they came out after the half, got a nice drive together, were able to go down, score a touchdown, a 1-yard run by Marshawn. But then the defense, who struggled throughout most of the day, I mean, they were able to bottle up Aaron Jones to a degree. He only had 62 yards, but the 2 touchdowns. Aaron Rodgers had less than 250 yards, but he completed 16 of 27, averaged 9 yards an attempt, and they just had no one that could stop Davante Adams. I mean, he was a man. I'm not a man possessed, but he was just like a one-man wrecking crew. I mean, he seemed like he could do whatever he wanted on whoever was lined up against him. He had 8 for 160 and 2 touchdowns. So yeah, the Seattle really struggled with him, and it was just one of those things where you knew that they had one guy that you needed to stop, and they just weren't able to stop him, because I think the next highest guy in terms of receptions was Jimmy Graham with 3, and then everyone else only had 1 reception. So it was Davante Adams really doing most of the legwork in the Packers passing game, but again, Seattle just couldn't stop him. But yeah, so going back to the second half, they get the touchdown. They give up the second touchdown to Davante Adams. This one a little bit deeper than the first one. This was a 40-yard touchdown. But then this is where Seattle decided they wanted to make the game interesting. They go down again after the Packers put up 28-10. They go down and score a touchdown this time. A 7-yard pass from TJ Lockett after a nice little scramble, which, I mean, it seemed like Russ was doing every play. I mean, that's kind of the way they run their offense to a degree. It's just like have him play action, drop back, and just either try to get people open and he hits them on like crossing routes or deep routes. So he throws an amazing deep ball, arguably one of the best, if not the best in the league. But then if he's not, then just like, all right, just let him run around for like 3, 4, how many ever seconds. A lot of times it leads to sacks, but when he doesn't lead to sacks, either he's breaking off runs, which he did a lot today, or he's finding people down the field for big gains. I mean, like today he had 7 carries for 64 yards. Once again, he was the Seahawks' leading rusher. 21 to 31, 277 and a touchdown through the air. The one to Tyler Lockett, and what I will give the Packers credit for, amongst obviously winning the game, was the fact they were able to bottle up Metcalf. I mean, unfortunately, that meant Tyler Lockett, not TJ. Wow. Tyler Lockett had a good game. He had 9 for 136 and a touchdown. But DK, who killed the Eagles last week, though, in fairness, a lot of people have done that. So, while it was great for DK, not exactly shocking. But he had like, I think it was like 8 for 160, something like that. But he had the most yards in a rookie debut in the playoffs in history. So they did a good job on him. Like I said, then that meant Tyler Lockett was doing his thing. So the Seattle got a touchdown and cut it 28-17, like I said, on Lockett. Force a 3 and out. Come down again, get another touchdown. This time they cut it 28-23. This was the second Marshawn 1-yard touchdown. They tried a 2-point conversion, didn't get it. He got sacked. Russ did. And then they get the ball back. They forced the Packers to punt once again after they ran a nice little stunt. Shaquem Griffin. He did a nice little twist, loop around inside. No one blocked him. He's too fast. And they were able to sack him and his brother. That was actually kind of a cool moment where they combined for the sack on Aaron Rodgers. And Russ gets the ball back, and you're like, oh boy, here we go. The Seahawks are going to go down and take the lead, and Aaron Rodgers is going to have another playoff collapse to the Seahawks on his record. But luckily, the Packers defense said that they were not going to allow that to happen, as they got the Seahawks to third down, and Preston Smith was able to come with a big sack, which was vital because, like I said, they were going to try to potentially take the lead. And not that surprisingly, because the Seahawks are kind of conservative when it comes to these type of things, but they didn't go for it on 4th and 11 with like 2:40 left, which I mean I get, because you're at your own 36, so if you give them the ball there, it's basically guaranteed a field goal. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, you didn't get the ball back again after that, so it's like, if you have the ball, might as well use all 4 downs if you could, but they decided not to. It is what it is. So they punt the ball back to the Packers, and the Packers were able to convert multiple 3rd and longs, one to Davante Adams on a line up in the slot, ran a nice little slot fade on Ugo Amadi, I think was the Seahawks slot corner. He had safety himself over the top, but let him get outside, and it was a perfect throw. I mean, Aaron Rodgers hadn't needed to be perfect that often this season, but when they needed him to be in this game, he was, and that was one of the examples. Then later on in the drive, they convert a 3rd and 9 to Jimmy Graham, which is going to lead to a lot of controversy and a lot of talk on social media in the coming days and and talk radio on those TV networks about it, just because it looked like in the screenshots that he was short, and in the replays looked like he was short. It looked like he came down before the first down marker, but they gave him the spot on the field, and in Lambeau they weren't going to overturn it for whatever that's worth. So I know if you're guys like, oh, the NFL's rigged, blah blah blah, like that's you have a good case for that in this specific play. Obviously, there were many other plays throughout the game that helped decide it. It wasn't just this one play, but in my opinion, the Seahawks should have at least got the ball back with a chance, because it looked like he was short. At least come out, move the ball back, measure it. The Packers probably go for it on fourth down. Maybe they get it, and then that doesn't really matter. But just the fact that they just award them the first down by like a healthy margin too, like it wasn't even close enough to spot, and like to check the spot on it was kind of interesting to me, especially after earlier in this game the referees had another blunder where Hollister fumbled, and the referee literally takes the ball out of the Packers player's hand as he's on the ground. But somehow they ruled that it was no clear recovery. They're lucky the Packers won, because if they didn't, because I think they were up 7-0. Yeah, they were up 7-0 at the time the Packers were. So that could have been 14-0. And had the Packers lost, that would have been a bigger thing. But because they didn't, that probably gets swept under the rug a little bit. Also because they had the play later in the game. But I know this same referee, I don't know if it's the same crew, but the same referee refereed the Eagles-Cowboys game, the second game last year. Which, if you don't know what happened there, the first play, Jordan Lewis, I think, is returning the kickoff. Malcolm Jenkins forces a fumble. Like 6 Eagles guys fall on it, or on top of the ball. One guy comes out of the pile with the ball, and they rule no clear recovery, which was a disaster. And the Eagles end up losing that game. They might have ended up losing it anyway, even if they got that. But it was just like, if you're a fan of either of those teams, you remember this referee from that same situation. It's just like when you see. Especially when in the Eagles situation, the rule is if there's only one team on top of the ball, then that the ball goes to them. Even if you don't know a specific player, they didn't rule it that way. But that's neither here nor there. And I'm just saying, if the Packers lost this game, they would have had an argument for that no clear recovery, because you can see the one guy, I think Chandon Sullivan, had the ball in his hands. The referee takes the ball out of his hands so they can spot it, but somehow you got no clear recovery. But that's whatever. But yeah, I mean, that was a great game. Like I said, the Packers and Seahawks always play close, competitive, wild games in the playoffs. So this is another one to add to that list. But yeah, good for Aaron Rodgers. Like I said, if they would have blown another game to the Seahawks, that would have been very tough for him to live down. But luckily, he doesn't have to, because they were able to win. So no big deal. And then the earlier game today was definitely one for the history books, just because not the Titans, which we will talk about in the next segment, but the Texans started this game about as well as you can ask a team to start a game. The issue for them was that the game was 4 quarters instead of 1 quarter, because if it was 1 quarter, bam, boom, they're hosting the AFC Championship. But because it was 4 quarters, that means the Chiefs got to play 3 more quarters, and that means the Chiefs got to score more points, and that's exactly what they decided they were going to do. As the Texans get a touchdown their first drive on a blown coverage on the 3rd and 1, they do a fake bubble. Kenny Stills runs with the field, no one guards him. 54-yard touchdown, cool. Next possession, they force a 3 and out, and then on 4th down, they block a punt for a touchdown. Oh, okay, 14-0. Arrowhead's a little stunned right now. Next possession, the Chiefs are forced to punt. The Texans get the ball back. They also have to punt. But they put Tyreek Hill back to field the punt because Andy Reid thought it was a big play in the game, which it was. Turns out, unfortunately for him, it was a big play for the Texans because Tyreek Hill fumbles, and then they recover. The Texans do. 2 plays later, they score again. This time it was to Darren Fells, Deshaun Watson, Darren Fells, and then boom, they're up 21-0 before you blink. The Chiefs then proceed to go 3 and out again, and you're just like, oh my God, are they going to get blown off the field at home? And, I mean, it looked like they were about to. Then the Texans get the ball back, drive down the field. And this is where the game changed, in my opinion. Because it's 4th and 1. They have a 4th and 1 from the Kansas City 13. And I don't even know if it's a full one. It might have been inches, but, like, they called it 4th and 1. And they decided to kick a field goal after calling a timeout. And in my opinion, if you're going to kick the field goal, just kick it. if you're going to go for it, just go for it. But when you call a timeout, you can't call a timeout and then also kick the field goal. Like, you call a timeout to decide, like, hey, what play do we have to run that can get us a yard? And I think in the post-game press conference, Bill O'Brien said that they just didn't have a play like there, which is almost a fireable offense in my opinion, because you don't have any play on those big play sheets that those guys have, those massive laminated play sheets with color coded and section here, section there, blah blah blah. All of that play sheet, both double-sided. There wasn't one play that to get you a yard on 4th and 1. Like, I mean, come on. That's embarrassing. So then they decided to kick the field goal instead of going for the absolute kill. Because if down 28-0, even with the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill, all the Sammy Watkins, Hardman, Damian Williams, all the weapons they have, down 28-0 at home is almost a death sentence in terms of, like, for their season. But they didn't do that. They decided to kick the field goal, and then the floodgates opened, and the Chiefs just decided, like, hey, you know it'd be cool if we just, like, scored every time we got the ball. And like, that's what I imagine the conversation was between Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. And, Mahomes was like, you know what? Let's try that. So they get the ball next after a long kick return for 58 yards. They get the ball next, 2 plays, touchdown. Then the Texans get the ball back or force the punt, and then this time, for whatever reason, they fake the punt on their own 31-yard line. Mind-boggling decision, because they have a guy in Justin Reed, who's a safety, who's not used to handling the ball, go up against Daniel Sorensen, who is used to tackling people, having one-on-one. They probably got what they want in terms of you got one guy to beat one guy. Their guy didn't beat their guy. But so then they turned over on downs. Though, in my opinion, if you're going to go for it there, then how do you not go for it on the possession before? That seems kind of backwards to me. Whatever. I'm not a head coach. So then they go for it, they don't get it. 3 plays later, the Texans, the Chiefs are in the end zone. And then on the ensuing kickoff, well, this time Travis Kelce, the first of Travis Kelce touchdowns of the day. And then on the ensuing kickoff, Daniel Sorensen forces a fumble. The Chiefs recover, bring it down to the 6, and in 3 plays they score again. And before you know it, like within like 5 minutes, I'm trying to do the math here, but I'll give or take 5 minutes, probably less, honestly. That's how crazy it is. Within like 5 minutes of game time, the Chiefs go from down 24-0 to within one score, 24-21, before you can even blink. And then on top of that, so then they get the touchdown to Travis Kelce after the fumble on the kickoff. The Texans then punt, get the punt down to the 10. The Chiefs then proceed to go 8 plays, 90 yards, touchdown, and take the lead before the half. And it was over like probably 2 possessions before then, but like at that point the game was over, in my opinion, because you don't blow that kind of lead in a quarter, mind you. Mahomes threw 4 touchdown passes in the second quarter to take the lead. You don't blow that kind of lead and then come back and win the game. That's just not how these things go. I don't care who you are. I don't care what kind of mental fortitude you think you have. You blow that kind of lead in literally a quarter of play, you're losing, especially on the road. Like maybe at home you might have a shot, but on the road you're losing that game. And on top of the fact that Chiefs get the ball back at the beginning of the second half, so it was like, all right, it was basically all but over. I mean, the Texans are lucky this game didn't happen in like a bigger scenario, because if it did, they would be getting all. I mean, they're still probably going to get a lot of this, but they're going to get. They would have replaced the Falcons. Like Falcons fans and players were asking if this would replace 28-3, and just to let you guys know, it does not. That was in the Super Bowl, much bigger stakes. But this is about as bad as it, because at least with the 23, the Falcons blew lead, it happened over the course of like a quarter and a half, plus they had to go to overtime. Like there was more that went into it. In this, the Texans literally blew a 24-point lead in a quarter, which is mind-boggling. How that can happen. Like the defense just decided it couldn't stop Travis Kelce because they were like, oh, let's double Tyreek Hill. Makes sense. But when you do that, you then leave Travis Kelce one-on-one, and he was one-on-one with the rookie corner, Lonnie Johnson, who played at Kentucky last year, and I don't think there was anybody in the SEC, receiver or tight end, that was anywhere near the skill level of Travis Kelce. So he had never gone up against anything like this. Well, maybe until this year, obviously. But so he wasn't ready. This isn't his fault. He should not have ever been on Travis Kelce, but he was. That was what they decided to go with, and it was a disaster. Travis Kelce killed them all game. He went for 10 receptions, 134 yards, 3 touchdowns. Second half, he was playing with a bum hamstring. Didn't even matter. Still was getting open. Still was making catches. But yeah, long story short, after the Chiefs scored touchdowns on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 straight possessions after being down 24-0. Outscored the Texans 51-7. Let me repeat that. 51-7. They were down 24-0 and scored 51 points after that to win the game 51-31. Like, I think this, I mean, there were so many tweets going out about this, but I think this is the first time anyone's ever been down by 20. Yeah, okay. Houston, Kansas City is the first game in NFL history, regular season or postseason, where a team led by more than 21 points after the first quarter and trailed at halftime. And I think this is one of the first times ever where a team has ever been down by 20 and then end up winning that same game by 20. Because, I mean, teams come back from 20 points down sometimes. Not often, but sometimes. It happens. But in this scenario, I mean, they were down 20 and then end up winning the game by 20 points. Like, they took the lead and then that was the closest it ever got again. Because they couldn't stop it. And it's like, you're watching it happen, and after the fumble, you're like, oh my god, the Texans are gonna blow this. After the fumble, you're like, there's no way they win this game. There's no way. Unless the offense kicks it into gear. It didn't. And that's all she wrote. I mean, that was that second quarter is one of the wildest things I've ever seen in terms of my football watching life, just because it happened so fast. If you saw something at 24-0, you're like, all right, let me get food, so I can have food for the second half. You go leave, get food, come back, and you're just like, hold on, what? The Chiefs are winning? What happened? And it's just they scored 3 touchdowns in the span of 5 minutes of game time. It was absurd. I'm sorry if you're a Texans fan and you have to watch me walk through that collapse. I really am sorry, because I could not imagine watching my team do that to me in the playoffs. I really couldn't. But it is what it is. We get the Chiefs and the Packers move on to their respective championship games. And after this upcoming break, the break that's about to happen in a few seconds, we will talk about the other 2 games from Saturday and see who will be joining them in those games. So we will be right back after this.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines, they got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
We are back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast, driven by GSMC Podcast Network. So Saturday was another interesting day in a completely different way from Sunday, just because, I don't even know how to talk about, how to even word what happened in that Texans-Baltimore game. So I'm going to read this to you. All right. In this game, one team had 29 first downs, One team had 15. One team ran 92 total plays. The other team ran 53. One team had 530 total yards. One team had 300. One team had 345 passing yards to 83. One team had 185 rushing yards to 217. And one team held the ball for 32 minutes, a little over 32 minutes, to the other team's 27 minutes and 54 seconds. So, if you don't know anything about that game, if you have no idea what happened, don't know the score, don't even know the teams, you just look at those stats, you would assume the team that had all that was more in first downs, more in yards, more in time of possession, more in passing yards, only really got beat in rushing yards, you would assume that team would have won, right? Wrong. That would be the stats from the Baltimore and Titans game. And in that game, the team with most of those lesser stats, the only thing the Titans did better than the Ravens was running the ball for more yards, and they were more efficient in the red zone. And apparently that was enough for them to get the win, because they absolutely dominated the Baltimore Ravens. Like, they basically did what the Texans did to the Chiefs, except like their defense also showed up, so they weren't able to the Ravens weren't ever able to really get anything going offensively, and the Titans forced a couple turnovers, which clearly helped. But yeah, if you looked at if you thought about how are the Titans going to pull off an upset? It was going to be Derrick Henry was going to have a great game. He did. The defense was going to have to contain Lamar. They did not. And Ryan Tannehill was going to have to make sure he didn't make any mistakes. He did. Lamar in this game had over 500 total yards of offense. Let me read that for you again. Or say that for you again. He had over 500 yards of total offense in a game where his offense only scored 12 points. Almost unheard of. Again, he threw the ball 59 times, which is absurd. But yeah, 31 of 59, 365, one touchdown, two interceptions. The two interceptions were probably the big thing. Had 20 carries for 143 yards. He was there. Outside of Derrick Henry, you could argue he was one of, if not the best player on the field, and it didn't even matter because the Titans they dominated, and they hit them. Before the Ravens even knew what happened, they were down 14-0, and they just weren't ever able to overcome it. So this game starts out, Titans get the ball, first they got a punt. The next drive, the Ravens are moving the ball, then they get a pass is a little high for Mark Andrews, goes through his hands. It gets picked off by Kevin Byard. He runs it back to the 50. Then Lamar gets a 15-yard penalty for grasping the helmet opening when he goes for the tackle. And then the Titans go down 8 plays, 35 yards. On third and goal from the 12, Tannehill throws a jump off to John Newsom, who tips it to himself and somehow gets both his feet in for an acrobatic touchdown. Okay, boom. They're up 7-0. Nothing too crazy. Then the next drive comes. The Ravens drive the ball a little bit, get to the 45, try to run Lamar, get him. There they go for it. Then they run it with Lamar. Does not work. He gets stuffed. He goes backwards. Actually, he doesn't go backwards. He just doesn't gain any yards, and it wasn't even that close either. It was pretty obvious he was short of the line. Next play, play action deep shot to Khalif Raymond, I believed, who goes, just runs a nice little, fake out or, corner post kind of situation. His only catch of the game, because Ryan Tannehill only threw for 88 yards. We'll get to that in a second. Yeah, Khalif Raymond shakes Marlon Humphrey, runs deep down the middle of the field for a touchdown. One play, 45 yards. Next thing you know, the Ravens are down 14-0, and this is basically what they avoided all year, was getting in these big deficits. And you could see that this team is not equipped, whether it be, if you want to say it's Lamar as a passer, but I more say it's just the weapons that he has to throw the ball to. They're not equipped to play from behind. They're a team that runs their offense through their running backs and their running quarterback and their tight ends. They have one fast receiver. He's been decent this year, but Hollywood Brown's been in and out of the lineup due to injury. And outside of that, they don't really have a whole lot at the receiver position. Then they got 3 very solid tight ends, but as the Eagles kind of had the same struggle with, like, if your best pass catchers are tight ends, then you're not really that difficult of a passing offense to stop, because because unless you're lining them up on the outside, they all mainly work in the middle of the field, so you can congest the middle of the field and play man coverage on the outside and force the receivers to beat you. And the Ravens couldn't do that consistently. And also, I mean, Lamar missed some passes here and there, but like I said, they didn't really have anybody to. He didn't really have too much on the outside to throw it to. And I mean, the Ravens were able to cut the 14-point deficit a little bit. They got it to 14-6 with 2 field goals, though a lot of those were 2 very long drives where they were able to drive the ball down the field, but then kind of stalled out on third down. They kind of struggled on third down all night, really. I'm trying to see if I could find. Yeah, they were. Oh no, I'll take that back. They didn't really struggle that bad. They were 11 of 18 on third down, but their issue was fourth down, which is more so in the second half, where they. But even, like I said, in the first half, they had the one third down conversion that they tried, and they weren't able to get coming out of the halftime. And they went for it on fourth down again. They tried a quarterback sneak, but for whatever reason, Lamar went to the outside. I think this is the one where Lamar goes to the outside when he could have just went forward. I mean, Lamar's one of the most electrifying players I've ever seen, especially this young or this early into his career. So I'm not going to tell him how to run the ball, because he knows what he's doing. But that his decision there to just not go forward on quarterback sneak, which is what most people do, and try to go around the end. Then he tried to have to stop, try to double back. It didn't really work. It did not work at all. And then so they get stopped on that fourth down. The next drive, they get another touchdown after Derrick Henry rumbles on 3rd-and-1 for 66 yards, which was funny because Earl Thomas had those comments earlier in the week about how, the Patriots didn't really seem that interested in trying to tackle him, like, we're different. And that sounds good until you have to tackle a guy that's like 6'4", 6'5", like 250, play after play. And just naturally you're going to be like, no, I don't want to do this. And that one play was an example because I think he got hit in the backfield, bounced off like 2 guys, and ran through the middle of their defense and outran almost the entire team to the end zone. And then he got the ball. No, he didn't. Oh, yeah. So then they tried to give it to him they gave it to him the next play after that. He got like 3 yards and they threw incomplete. Then he did his best Tebow impersonation, did a nice little jump pass, even though the funniest thing is that if you watch that play, no one covers Marcus Mariota. He's standing on the right side, like wide open, waving his hands like, hello, Derek, please throw me the ball. It worked out. Corey Davis caught it, got his both feet in, so it didn't really matter, but it was just funny to watch. Just Mario just like wave his arms like, hey, someone throw me the ball over here. But that was funny. But yeah, so they get that. Then the next drive, first play, Lamar gets sacked, gets stripped, fumbled. The Titans get the ball back. Then 6 plays later, they're in the end zone. This time on their Tannehill, they ran a nice little speed option. Earl Thomas overplayed to Derrick Henry, and Tannehill was able to shake off a tackler, get in the end zone, and then it's 28-6, and then the game's all but over. I mean, the Ravens were able to score 1 touchdown, but it was never really in doubt. It was never really in doubt. After they went up 21-6, it was like, all right, yeah, this game's over. Just because, like I said, the Ravens' offense is built to ground pound and then pass as an alternative, not pass as their main thing. Because most of their best plays in the game came a lot of them came with Lamar using his legs, like breaking down, whether designed or not, just like breaking contain, breaking the pocket, and running. That was most of Baltimore's best offense in that game, and that works a lot better when you're not down double digits most of the game. And unfortunately, that's where the Ravens found themselves. And it's just unfortunate that this is how their season ended, just because like we talked about in the last podcast, Lamar didn't have a good playoff game last year either. So this will be like, oh, is he just not a big-time performer? Oh, did we crown him too soon? Oh, see, I told you he was really a running. Like, all that foolishness that's going to come out in the coming days and weeks and months through the offseason until Lamar can prove himself again. Even though, like, one game does not a season make, he's still the MVP. He's still the best player in the league this year. He had a bad game. All right. I mean, Tom Brady had a bad game last week against the same Titans team, and no one's saying that he should no longer be a quarterback. Like, it's just like this game unfortunately allows people to confirm the bias that they already had about Lamar, just because like, oh, I don't think he's that good, so let me wait till he plays bad again and then be like, see, told you guys. And I'm like, you couldn't say anything for, I think what they won like 12 games in a row, 11 that he played in. So they've been waiting 3 months to get these takes off, and unfortunately Lamar gave him the ammo by not playing that well. But regardless, it's a good season for them and a better season for Tannehill, who, I mean, just some of the stats from this game are kind of absurd. The Titans, start with Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry went for 180 yards, 30 for 182 or 184. Yeah, 30. I'm sorry, that was last week. 30 for 195. He didn't score this week, but he threw the passing touchdown, so there's that. So Derrick Henry is the first player ever with 180 yards in back-to-back games, so 3 straight games, playoff or not, because he did it the last game of the regular season and these first 2 playoff games, and, I mean, who's going to say he's not going to do it again against the Chiefs? The Titans are the first team to win 2 playoff games with under 100 yards passing since 1988, and Lamar is the 3rd player ever with 300 yards passing and 100 yards rushing in the game, and the first ever to do it in the playoffs. So that game was a record breaker for various reasons, and also the stat that CBS put up towards the end of the game is the only teams to win multiple games in the same postseason with fewer than 100 passing yards were the Miami Dolphins in 1972 and 1973, and the Pittsburgh Steelers in 1974, funny enough. So that's 3 straight years. And all those teams won the Super Bowl. And the Titans had 71 yards passing last week and 83 tonight. I think they might have got it up a little bit higher. Yeah, I think they got it up to, what was it? They got up to 91, I believe. No, they finished at 83 because of the sack. So yeah, they finished with 83. So 2 straight games where Tannehill hasn't really had to do that much. Derrick Henry's done everything, and are they going to be able to keep that up? Probably not, but for now it's working, and if it's not broke, don't fix it. So I imagine they're going to try that same formula, though I do believe Tannehill's going to have to at least try to throw for over 100 yards next game against the Chiefs for them to have a shot. So then that was the game, easily the surprise of the weekend. I said I wouldn't be surprised if we were on here and talking about the Titans winning. I was not surprised to see the Titans win because they were able to do the things that I thought they would be able to do if they were going to win, which is Derrick Henry was going to run the ball well. They got some turnovers. They were able to stop Lamar in their running game, even though Mark Ingram was hurt, so that probably helped a little bit. And then Tannehill did just enough, and that's basically what happened. Though, like I said, I didn't expect them to dominate in the fashion they did and win by double digits, but like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if they won. And then an even less surprising event was the Vikings-Niners game earlier on the day on Saturday, where the Niners dominated basically from start to finish. At no point did you really ever believe that the Vikings were going to win. Well, I take that back because they tied it. They tied up 7-7 after the Niners went down the field basically pretty easily, almost surgical. I mean, I knew Shanahan was going to have a great game plan coming into this one, and that's exactly what he had. They went down the field, 8 plays, 61 yards, touchdown pass from Jimmy G to Kendrick Bourne. Then the Vikings came down again, came down the next drive, got a touchdown. This one a deep pass to Stephon Diggs, who made a nice catch and acceleration. And then they forced a punt on the next drive, and then after the Niners were punted, the Vikings punted on one of their 7. Let me just double check for you guys. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, one of their 7 3-and-outs on the day. This was a big issue for them all game. I mean, when you don't have the ball, you can't score. So that was part of their issue. And the Niners made the most of that because after their 3-and-out where they got sacked on first down, Cousins did by Armstead, then they tried to run a couple times, didn't really go anywhere. They punted, then the Niners came down, scored, even though they fumbled, but it got overturned because I think Debo was down, and that hurt because that would have been a big momentum swing. And then, like, from there, they just couldn't really stop Tevin Coleman, and he just kind of ran all over them the rest of that drive. And to get into the end zone, then they went 3-and-out again, punted. Then they got a gift from Jimmy G right before the half. He throws an interception to Eric Kendricks, who he tried to throw an interception to earlier in the game. But the Kendricks got this one. You're like, oh, okay, maybe the Vikings can tie it up. They weren't able to, had to kick the field goal. And then that was basically all she wrote because they didn't score again the rest of the game. Not the Titans. Niners came out at half, got a field goal. Then Sherman picks off. Richard Sherman picks off Kirk Cousins on a great play by him. He was all over Thielen on that play in man coverage. Kirk Cousins should not have thrown that ball. Thielen did not even know where the ball was when the ball was in the air. But Sherman did. He caught it. A few plays later, Tevin Coleman was running into the end zone again. And he was great all night for them. I think he went over 100 yards. And that's the issue when you play a Niners team because he had 22 for 105 and 2 touchdowns. Most of their 58 yards. And Breida only had 17. But Coleman and Mostert both averaged 4.8 yards a carry. They only did the one carry with Debo, but he's the guy, they run the ball. So they're just like one of those things where they just can ride the hot hand. And that makes them so difficult to defend because coming into the week, you don't know who's going to be the guy. You have to wait till you get into the game, and then who you think, like, coming off this game, you think, oh, it might be Tevin Coleman. That's going to be the guy next week. Then no, it's like, oh, this is the Matt Breida game, or this is the Raheem Mostert game, or maybe this is the game Jimmy G throws like 300 yards, 4 touchdowns. Like, their offense can beat you in different ways, and and Kyle Shanahan's such a great play caller that it can make it easier on Jimmy G, and that makes it easier for them, the offense, to move because Jimmy G really. They had to do a little bit more than Tannehill, but really not even that much. He only threw the ball 19 times, 131 yards, a touchdown, an interception, and 2 sacks. But they didn't really need him to do that much because the defense was dominant. They were getting after Kirk all day, sacked him 6 times. Like I said, they got the 1 interception. They got a 1 fumble on a punt. That definitely helped. Swing back whatever momentum the Vikings were trying to get back to the Niners. This was later in the game. I'm trying to remember when this fumble was. This was. I'm trying to think. I know this was before. I think this was 20. This is when it was. Yeah, this is when it was 24-10. I'm putting the ball back to the Vikings to maybe thought, maybe they can get some momentum here, make it a 1-score game. Then like I said, Sherrill's muffed the punt. Then the Niners get a field goal, and then it was already over. But that just kind of ended whatever hope the Vikings had because the 2 possessions after that they go 3-and-out, go backwards on both drives, and they had 2 other drives that just ended on downs. And yeah, this is the Niners team that if you're a believer in the Niners, which, you kind of have to be at this point, this is kind of the game you expected them to play. Just dominant, run the ball well. Jimmy G just does just enough that front 4 gets after Kirk Cousins. Nick Bosa was a monster. He was all over the place all game. Arguably one of the best players on, well, not arguably, he was one of the best players on the field all night, or all day, all night, however you want to call it. But yeah. So now everything's set. Niners, Packers. Niners already played the Packers. They smoked them before. Don't think it'll be that easy this time, but I know the Niners have to feel confident going in. And then you got the Titans and the Chiefs. The Titans already beat the Chiefs earlier this year. Actually, funny enough, with Tannehill. So they're not going to be scared. They've just won 2 games on the road with 1 more game on the road. And I know they're not going to be scared. And Derrick Henry's playing as well as just about anybody in the league, or especially left in the playoffs right now. He's been dominant, been impossible to stop. The Chiefs' defense can still get run on, so it's not going to be simple for them. But, hey, we'll see how it goes. But, yeah, that's, great playoffs. I'm expecting 2 great games, again, next Sunday that we'll be talking about come this time next week. And, yeah, that's the playoffs have been great so far, in my opinion. And, like I said, I don't expect that to slow down this weekend. We should get 2 pretty good games. People probably are going to be mainly picking the Chiefs and the Niners, but I feel like both teams could win both games. Like, I wouldn't be shocked either way. We'll break it more down later in the week, but I just think there's no. I mean, there hasn't been any gimmies this entire postseason. Right? People thought the Ravens Titans was a gimme. People thought the Patriots Titans was a gimme. People thought Saints Vikings was a gimme. So yeah, it's just like there hasn't been. In my opinion, there's been no gimmies because there have been multiple teams that have come in thinking they're going to win and win easy, and that's not what happens. So that's the thing I love about the one game playoff. It is very unpredictable, and these playoffs have been unpredictable. I mean, no one would have assumed that when Ryan Tannehill took over in like week 7 that he would be marching into Arrowhead for a chance to play on the Super Bowl back in Miami. Funny enough, but yeah, so. That's been great, and after this break, we will be talking about the college football championship that is coming up on Monday. So when you be hearing this, it'll be happening later today. We got to discuss that. Who's going to win, Clemson or I almost said Ohio State, Clemson or LSU? I will tell you who I think is going to win right after this break, and why right after this break.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
And we are back here once again on the GSMC Sports Podcast, presented by GSMC Podcast Network. So both these teams, LSU and Clemson, coming to this game feeling differently. I mean, the LSU's coming off of a record performance from Joe Burrow, 7 touchdowns in the first half, 8 touchdowns in total. Justin Jefferson was unstoppable. 4 touchdowns, over 200 yards. Their defense was stifling. Oklahoma was never comfortable, could never really do anything. And then Clemson had to fight. They were down double digits. Had to fight, claw back. They had guys coming in and out of the lineup due to injury, but they showed that heart of a champion. Were able to stave off Ohio State and be able to get the job done there at the end with the big pick. So yeah, they come in. I mean, they both come in obviously undefeated. Clemson hasn't lost since because didn't they? I think they've won 25. I know. Trevor Lawrence is 25-0, I believe. But I'm trying to think because before that they had Deshaun. No, they had Kelly Bryant. Kelly Bryant was there for a year. This is Deshaun's 3rd year. So I mean, Trevor Lawrence has been there 2 years. Yeah. So then Kelly Bryant. So then they lost to some team that year. I think in the playoff. I forget who it was. But yeah, they've won 25 in a row. They've been here before. They've been on the stage before. They know what it takes to win. And they're going up against an LSU team who, I mean, outside of the fact that they've been dominant all year, beating 5 top 15 teams. Joe Burrow has been unstoppable. Maybe been the best college quarterback ever. I mean, in a season ever. We'll talk about that in the next segment, but. They got that. Their defense is rounding into form. I mean, ever since Grant Delpit got healthy, they've been killing it. So this is going to be. I mean, if I thought Clemson Ohio State was probably going to be one of the better games of the year, and it lived up to the hype. And I think this one's going to be, though. I think this one will probably have a little bit more scoring in it, just because I am not sure. Much like with what people thought with Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore, I'm not sure how you stop LSU's offense. Because unlike Baltimore, these guys also have three legit receivers. Like, they have Jamar Chase, who, I mean, what they have? Okay, in total, they have a quarterback who, including the college football playoff, has thrown for over 5,000 yards and like 55 touchdown passes. They have 2,000-yard receivers in Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson, and a 1,000-yard running back in Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who is actually going to be healthier now because he wasn't. They didn't even need him to do that much against Oklahoma, and now he's had some time off to heal up and get right. So he'll be, I would imagine, he'll be more useful, and he's going to be one of the X factors, I believe, for this LSU team, just in case, because Clemson has a great pass defense. So in case they're able to stifle their passing game a little bit, if they're able to run the ball with Helaire, that'll be huge for them. Just because, like I said, he's been big for them all year, so they're going to need him again in this game. And then on the defensive side, they have the Jim Thorpe Award winner in Grandel, but whether you thought he deserved it or not is a different story. But he won it. You have Christian Fulton, a corner who's going to go in the first round most likely. You got Derek Stingley Jr., who may very well be the best defensive back on his team as a freshman. I mean, he's been amazing this entire year. You got good pass rusher. Chason was making Hurts's night a nightmare in the last semifinal game. You know what I'm saying? They've got good players on all three levels of defense. But, I mean, Clemson on offense is no slouch. Obviously, you got Trevor Lawrence. We know about that, that's the craziest thing is that Joe Burrow, I mean, this has been a little bit of talk. I saw some articles about this, that Joe Burrow is having arguably the best season ever for a college quarterback and may not even be the best quarterback on the field come Monday night, which is crazy to think about. But, like, yeah, Trevor Lawrence is, I mean, people forgot because he's got off to a slow start, but, like, he's as good as any quarterback in the country. So he's not gonna shy away. They got Travis Etienne, who's one of the best running backs, definitely at least one of the most explosive running backs in the country. Two stud receivers in T. Higgins and Justin Ross. And on top of that, they are mismatches. I mean, much like the LSU receivers are, but just more so because of their size. Just like both those guys are over like 6'3", 6'4", and like they're big. They run good routes. They can get the jump ball. They give Trevor Lawrence a lot of wiggle room in terms of he can throw it. It doesn't have to be perfect, and those guys can go up and get it, as was evidenced last year when they put the beat down on Alabama. That kind of shocked everybody. But I mean, like I said, they've been here before. They've done this before, so I don't expect them to be afraid of the moment. But they may be catching LSU at the wrong time, because, like, as I said, LSU's defense is rounding back into form, into what people thought it was going to be. Obviously, they were hurt a little bit this year by Grant Delpit playing through some injury, but since he got back, but I think he got officially healthy, quote unquote, the Texas A&M game, they've given up 7 points, 10 points, and 28 points to Oklahoma, but I mean, they scored 63, so it didn't really matter. And in all three of those games, Kellen Mond, Jake Fromm, and then Jalen Hurts had their worst passing games of the year, arguably, in those last three games. So Trevor Lawrence is better than all of those guys, but he's going up against a defense that is playing as well as you could hope for at this time of the season. And then, like I said, that coupled with the offense that is first in completion rate and passing success rate this season. I mean, Joe Burrow is completing 78% of his passes, has over 5,000 yards, 55 touchdowns, only 6 picks. I mean, the Clemson defense is no slouch either. They are third in passing success rate allowed, and they're also third in the sack rate. So because of their good pass coverage, they allow their pass rush to get home because they can cover guys pretty well. And I think their biggest weapon on that defense is going to be Isaiah Simmons. He's going to be the X factor. If he plays well, then Clemson's going to have a shot regardless, just because they're Clemson and they have great players. But he's going to be a big deal because he can play in center field, as he showed in the last game, where he was able to track down the ball near the sideline and pick off Justin Fields. Or he can play near the line, where he's been one of their best pass rushers in terms of, like, I think he's I'm trying to see, like, second on the team in sacks or something. No, he leads the team in sacks with 6. He leads the team in total tackles with 97. He also has 3 picks on the year, 6 pass defenses, forced fumble. Like, he's been a great, whatever you want to call him, linebacker, safety, whatever it is. He's been great. And then on top of that, though the Cubs don't have, like, the elite pass rusher, they just have a bunch of guys that can get after you. They have, I think, what is it, like 10 guys in total that have at least 2 sacks, because the defense coordinator Brett Venables likes to bring a lot of pressure, so he'll bring people from all over, linebackers, safeties, corners, whoever. It doesn't really matter. He's going to bring pressure. He's going to try to get to Joe Burrow. Issue is that Joe Burrow has been very good under pressure. He's very good back there, escaping the rush, moving around, keeping his eyes downfield, finding guys down the field, as he showed in the last game, as he showed all season. So they're going to need to find a way to, if they blitz him and get into the backfield, they're going to need to find a way to bring him down, because just getting pressure on him, like, he's not going to be fazed by the blitz, he's not going to be fazed by being under pressure. And obviously he's been very accurate this year, so I don't expect that to change. And then he has great receivers that can even help him out in the case of maybe he doesn't throw the greatest ball. He has receivers that can go up and make plays for him. So the pressure is going to be important, but like I said, the reason why I think Simmons is going to be that big is because he can do a little bit of everything, and he can help take away Edwards-Helaire, who's been a great threat for the LSU out of the backfield. The issue with that is then you're leaving, then he's not blitzing, or not, like, so then that hurts your pass rush a little bit. So you gotta pick your poison. Are you going to try to blitz and get pressure on Burrow, get the ball out of his hands quickly, or are you going to try to play coverage, play man, play zone, whatever you want to do, and just hope that your corners and safeties and linebackers can cover their running backs and receivers and tight ends, which, I mean, may very well work. I'm not gonna sit here and say that it won't work, but it just, like, Simmons is going to be their little chess piece in terms of they can put him anywhere. Like I said, deep. They can put him on the second level. They can have him blitz, come off the edge, come up the middle, wherever. It doesn't really matter. But it'll be interesting to see how they deploy him, just because he's going to be the biggest thing LSU has to account for, and what he does and where he is may change up what LSU wants to do offensively. And like I said, when you get to the defense side of the ball, they don't really have the elite pass rusher either, even though Chason was great in the last game against Oklahoma. He had 2 sacks, was constantly in the backfield, constantly made Jalen Hurts' life, like I said, a nightmare. And he's going to have to do the same thing as Trevor Lawrence, who's not the runner that Jalen Hurts is, but is obviously a much better passer. And again, is not going to be afraid of the moment. I think I saw a stat where he's lost, like, in the last 6 years, including this year, he's lost like 2 total games between high school and college. So no matter how down or how far ahead LSU gets, if they do get a big lead on them, they're never going to be out of it. Dabo's a good coach. LSU's a well-coached team, an experienced team. Obviously, they were in the national championship. They're the defending champions, so they know what it takes to win here. So it's not going to be an issue for them. But just be interesting to see how these teams will be able to match up. I think the effectiveness of both their passing games will be what's important, because it's just like, that's the thing. Like, both these teams have great everything. So, like, really, it's like they're so evenly matched, like, on paper. So I expect it to be a little bit high scoring, but I still expect it to be like a close game. I don't expect it to be. Take Clemson won 29-23 over Ohio State. So take that, bump it up a little bit. So say, like, into the 30s, like 35, 31, or 38, 35, something like that. I think is kind of going to be the score. And I think one of the other keys could be in the red zone, where LSU's kind of isn't as good as in the red zone. Obviously, with them, they just can score from wherever, so they don't have to get in the red zone to score. But if Clemson can get them into the red zone and hold them to field goals, instead of letting them score touchdowns. That'll be big, just to help your own offense out a little bit. But yeah, that's going to be one of the keys to LSU is, in terms of success rate, is the 61st inside opponents 10, 85th in success rate on first and goals, and 104th near the goal line. So they're a team that isn't that good once they get into the red zone, but like I said, they don't really need to be because they can score from anywhere else on the field. So that'll be an important key to see how they do in the red zone. And then third down is going to be big, more so for when Clemson has the ball, just because they've been a solid team, nothing too great on third down, and they were 5 of 14 on third down against Ohio State, which is obviously not as good as you'd want to be. And LSU's defense has been great on third down. They only allowed 31% on the season, which is 9th best in the country, and they've only been allowing 25% over their last 5 games, which is, like I said, when their defense has really been rounding the form. So red zone for the LSU offense and third down for the Clemson offense are going to be the two big keys. And if whoever gets the edge and whoever ends up winning, probably that offense is going to have success in those areas, just because I don't see this being like a high turnover game. Like, neither quarterback turns the ball over a lot. They don't throw a lot of interceptions. They don't really fumble. Though they're playing 2 good defenses, so it wouldn't be surprising, but that's not what I expect. I expect like a good game, well coached, well played, high scoring enough, though not like a complete like 55-50 shootout kind of thing, but like high scoring enough. Like, both these offenses are too good. Normally, a great offense beats a great defense, especially in whether it's like pro college on stages like this. I mean, we saw that literally last year with Clemson and Alabama, like, and even like the older Clemson Alabama games when Deshaun Watson was there. Like, he threw some picks, he had some turnovers here and there, but he was able to score points and get yards on Alabama. And this is probably as close as to that Alabama defense as Clemson has played recently. Kind of last year they had Alabama Cup guys out with like injuries and stuff. But, I mean, LSU is the more battle-tested team in terms of this specific season. They've beaten great teams throughout at different points of their schedule. I mean, Clemson hasn't played as many good teams, but they've beaten everybody, and most of the teams they've beaten by a lot. I think they haven't scored under like 38 points since like September or something like that. So I think if I have to lean, I mean, Joe Burrow is playing out of his mind. LSU's look like the best team in the country for like a couple months now. I think it'll be close, but I think LSU probably wins. But like, this is one of those games where it's a toss-up. Like, if Clemson wins, am I shocked? No. If LSU wins, am I shocked? No. If LSU, the only thing I'd be shocked by is if Clemson wins by a lot. Like, if Clemson wins by double digits, that would genuinely shock me. Not because they're incapable, just because LSU's offense is so good. I don't expect them to get blown out. And their defense is playing so well, I don't expect them to get blown out either. But that's the only outcome that would shock me, is Clemson by double digits. But anything else, anything in between there, Clemson win close, LSU win close, LSU win by a little bit more, that wouldn't shock me because, I mean, Joe Burrow is playing out of his mind right now. So sometimes you got to ride with the hot hand, and that's what I'm doing in this situation, because until somebody stops Joe Burrow, I don't think it's possible. At least at the college level. NFL is going to be completely different. But at the college level, someone's going to have to stop him in order to make me a believer that it can happen. Because right now, I don't believe it. So that's where I'm at. And speaking of Joe Burrow, in my next segment, I'm going to talk about, is this the best college quarterback season we've ever seen? Some people say yes. Some people say no. I'll tell you my answer and why I think that right after this break.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red-hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's gsmcpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
Hello, we are back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast, run by GSMC Podcast Network. So now, Joseph Burrow. Is he playing like the best college quarterback ever? In terms of, like I said, just one, if you focus it down to one specific season. Now, in order to complete this, he needs to win on Monday. So, if he loses, all this thrown out the window, because in order to complete that, you have to be a national champion, in my opinion. This isn't like NFL, where like in the regular season, you can have like amazing stats like Tom Brady had when they went like 18-0, or different Peyton Manning years, especially with the Broncos. Some of those years where he had great regular season numbers, but they didn't end up winning the Super Bowl, and he might have already arguably been the best quarterback ever in those seasons. College football is different, and it requires you, in my opinion, to win the national championship. So Joe Burrow needs to win and probably play pretty well in this game. I mean, he's played well enough to where like he has the body of work already set, where he doesn't need like 7 touchdowns or anything like that, but play well, throw for another like 3 or 4 touchdowns. I think that firmly cements him as the best college quarterback ever. But I mean, when you look at the stats here, as of right now, like we talked about in the last segment, he is at 5,000 over 5,200 yards, has 55 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. He needs only 3 more touchdowns from tying the FBS record held by Colt Brennan for the most touchdowns in a season, which is obviously 58, but he set that in 2007. And he's done all this while beating 5 teams in the current top 13, which are Oklahoma, Georgia, Florida, Auburn, and Alabama. And then obviously, if he puts up a good game against Clemson, then that'll be 6 in the top. That'll be 6 teams that he's done it against in terms of some of the best teams he's done against, some of the best competition that you could imagine. Obviously, all these teams and all these quarterbacks that he'd be vying against would have to do this because they'd have to win the national championship. So you got to play a good team in the national championship. But over the course of the year, he's played good team after good team and passed every single test with flying colors. Probably, I mean, before last week, his greatest performance was obviously the Alabama game, where he threw for a bunch of yards, ran for like 60, 70 yards, something like that. That just to add on top of that, had a good amount of touchdowns in that game too. So he was great. But I think the 2 other quarterbacks he's going up against for this honor, if you will, are Vince Young in 2005 and Cam Newton in 2010. Now, the issue for both of those guys is just pure statistically, they don't measure up at all. Like, for Vince Young, the team went 13-0, and he put on one of the greatest bowl performances, obviously, in that Rose Bowl against USC. Running for that on top of the fact that he ran for the game-winning touchdown, he was great at every other point throughout that game. Helped beat one of the greatest teams assembled up to that point in college football. And that year, he finished 3rd in passing efficiency, threw for a little over 3,000 yards, and ran for another 1,000. So a little over 4,000 yards total, and combined for 38 touchdowns with throwing 10 picks. And Cam Newton, on the other hand, he took a team that before him went 8-5, and after him went 8-5, and he was basically obviously the biggest addition to that team. Took them to 14-0, finished 2nd in passing efficiency. And his was higher than Vince Young's. He was at 182.1, and Vince Young was at 163.9. Threw for 2,854 yards and ran for 1,473. So for 4,300 total, and had 50 combined touchdowns. I think like 30 passing and 20 rushing, I believe, is around the numbers. I will double check for you guys, but yeah, I think it was around something like that. So 30 passing, and 20 rushing, and then I think he had only had like 6 or 7 picks. Yeah, he had. So so I'm pulling them up here. So the 1 year he had 30 touchdowns passing, 7 interceptions, and then he had, like I said, the almost 1,500 yards rushing and 20 more touchdowns. And then he even had a receiving touchdown too, just for good measure. And I still remember the play where he runs through the LSU defense like stiff arms, like Patrick Peterson, a guy who is one of the best corners in his generation, was in college and still is in the pro, and stretches out for the touchdown and he made it look like Patrick Peterson was running in slow motion. It was an amazing play. I mean, everybody has those Heisman moments. I just remember that one for Cam. But yes, those are probably the two best, at least in recent memory. I don't know about in the 80s and the 70s and stuff like that, but just in recent memory, the best quarterback season, and probably just statistically the best quarterback season, just because of, obviously, offenses have gotten better over the course of time, so players are putting up more and more prolific numbers and stats and stuff, so it's only fitting that these records will get to be broken, and the greatest seasons will continue to happen further and further down the line. But I just think, in my personal opinion, assuming LSU wins on Monday night and Joe Burrow caps off his Heisman Trophy year with a championship, again, another assumption, I'm assuming Joe Burrow plays well tomorrow because, I'm recording this Sunday night, so I'm assuming he plays well on Monday because he hasn't played poorly in any game this season, so I don't expect Monday to be the first time it happens. So, assuming he plays well and assuming LSU wins, I think you have to say, in my opinion, that this is the best season a quarterback's ever had. Because he has a chance to break the passing touchdowns record for a season. He currently holds the NCAA record for completion percentage in a season. That's 77.6. So we'll see how much higher or lower that goes up. He currently is he's at a 204.6 passing efficiency, which is higher than the current FBS record. And he will be number one after I think he's already currently number one because the only one that was better than him was Tua, but I don't think he played enough games to qualify for it technically. So he should be number one, and like I said, he's already set the record for that, assuming that doesn't drop down drastically. So he's going to have all kind of records. He throws for 3 touchdowns or more, he'll have the record for most passing touchdowns in a season. And again, it's not like when Colt Brandon is at Hawaii, it's just like on a random good Hawaii team. Like this he will be setting this record on the national championship LSU Tiger team, which is a big difference. And I mean, the one thing that I would have to knock isn't the right word, but the one thing I think will hurt him and maybe will bump a guy like Cam Newton up to the greatest team just because of the sheer level of talent that he has around him. Again, not his fault because he just has who he has. He didn't recruit these guys. These guys just decided to come here. But like I said in the last segment, he has 2,000-yard receivers, 1,000-yard running back, players on defense that are going to be NFL throughout the secondary, linebacker, defensive line, edge rushers. There's multiple. Offensive line too. Probably he's going to have. Tight end and Randy Moss's son, who's not. Whenever he decides to go to the NFL, who's going to get drafted. And obviously that's not his fault. But I think the team he has around him hurts his case a little bit just because of how talented those guys are around him. Now, LSU had a lot of talented teams before, and no quarterback has ever looked this good. So there is that. So Joe Burrow is different in that regard, where he's taking the talent around him and maximizing it. But like I said, when you look at the Cam and his team, that team was 8-5 before he got there. He gets there, and then after he leaves there, 8-5 again. And if you go back and look up that roster, it's still a good college roster, and NFL success, not college success, so that doesn't really matter. But outside of Nick Fairley, none of those guys were really superb college players. There's one guy, Josh Bynes, who was a linebacker, who's still in the league. Michael Dyer, who was the MVP of that national championship game. He had some off the field issues, so he kind of never panned out. His leading receiver is just a guy like most of the offensive skill players on that team might have made it to the league for like 1 or 2 years and like fizzled out. While Burrow has guys that are going on both sides of the ball that are going to be first, second, third round draft picks and potentially play in the league. I mean, you never really know how long they'll play in the league, but like Justin Jefferson has a chance to go second, maybe even first round if he has a good combine. Jamar Chase was the best receiver in the country this year. He'll be a first round pick when he decides to leave. Edwards-Helaire is going to go a little bit lower, but he's still a very good college running back. And then, like I said, that defense has 2 guys in the secondary that's going to go in the first round. Another guy in the secondary who's a freshman that could very well be a top 5, top 10 pick whenever he declares. Good edge rusher in Chase on who's probably going to go in the first 2 rounds. Linebackers in Phillips and Queen that are good. Defensive linemen that are good. Like I think his name's Tyler Clark. Like there are very good players on that team outside of Joe Burrow, but obviously he's just been the engine that's made it all work. So I think that'll be some people's knock on Joe, just how talented the LSU team is compared to this Auburn team. But side by side, stat for stat, number to number, assuming Joe Burrow and LSU win on Monday, Joe Burrow has everybody beat, in my personal opinion. I mean, you throw for over 5,000 yards, throw for almost 60 touchdown passes, have single-digit interceptions, set a completion percentage record possibly, set a passing efficiency record possibly. Like, he's going to set records all over the place. And then on top of winning the Heisman and winning the national championship, I mean, for one season, I don't think there's any quarterback that's been better, in my opinion. You may disagree with me. You are more than welcome to. I'm not the be-all and end-all in terms of college football and stuff, so I'm more than welcome to have a debate with you about this. But in my opinion, Joe Burrow is the best. Again, assuming he caps it off with a championship, this is the best season we've ever seen from a quarterback in college. Just how I feel. But hey, you're more than welcome to disagree. After this next break, we will be talking about the Browns. The Browns have a new head coach. Who it is and how they got there, I will let you know right after this.
Are you looking to get your college football fix? Looking to get the latest news on your favorite school's team? The GSMC College Football Podcast is your ticket to all things college football. Join us as we talk college football from the National Championship, the college rivalries, the bowl game, to the Heisman Trophy. To which conference is the best? We've got you covered for the Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, the Pac-12, ACC, and everything in between. Download the GSMC College Football Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
And we are back here again on the GSMC Sports Podcast, presented by GSMC Podcast. So the Browns, they were the last domino to fall. I mean, everybody was waiting to see who they were going to end up hiring as their head coach. They've had a litany of interviews from Josh McDaniels to Robert Saleh, defense coordinator for the 49ers, to Jim Schwartz, to Greg Roman, I believe, to Eric Bieniemy, Brian Daboll, the Bills offensive coordinator. All those guys, they went through them, decided, we don't like any. Well, not we don't like any of those. They like some of those guys, but we're not going to pick any of those. And they settled. I don't know. Settled sounds wrong. Has a bad connotation to it, but like they picked Kevin Stefanski, the offensive coordinator from the Minnesota Vikings. Now, a lot of the NFL is a what have you done for me lately league, so obviously his last performing and his offense's last performance, not great. Only scored 10 points against San Francisco and against Robert Saleh, the defensive coordinator, who was also up for the job, so I know Richard Sherman had some things to say about that on Twitter earlier today, which was interesting, because I mean, he's going to ride for his guy, so not surprising. And again, one game and does not a season make. You have to go off the entire body of work. And this year, Minnesota Vikings offense has been quite good, and he's gotten career year level play out of Kirk Cousins this year. So I'm not surprised. And also, it has come out that with obviously John Dorsey out of the building, Paul DePodesta was the main guys, along with the Haslams, helping make these decisions. And Paul DePodesta was a guy who tried to get them to pick Sean McDermott over Hugh Jackson back in 2016. Obviously didn't do that. See how that's worked out for the Bills and for the Browns. And then last year, the analytics side of things wanted Kevin Stefanski, but John Dorsey decided that they were going to go in different directions and go with Freddie Kitchens, and thus that didn't work out either. And now they're here again. John Dorsey out of the building. Paul DePodesta is still there, and he finally gets his guy. Which, I mean, for the Brown side of things, is a good thing in terms of, like, at least it sounds like everybody's on the same page. Because it seems like there's been a lot of dysfunction with Cleveland over the last 20 years, so it's not just a new thing. But at least recently, seems to be like dysfunction in terms of front office, in terms of guys. At least it sounds like from who the people wanted. And I got this from Seth Wickersham, a senior writer at ESPN. He tweeted out the Paul DePodesta stuff. So if that is in fact true, and it sounds like there was some conflict within the front office on who they wanted, the fact that they have a guy they could all universally agree on, granted there's not that many of them, and they still have to hire a GM, but the guy that they universally agree on, and then obviously the coach will help pick the GM, so the GM will be in agreement with that guy being the head coach. And that's important, because you want, from a top down, you want everybody to have faith in the coach. Because if you don't, then you have the situations they've had where they end up firing guys 1 to 2 years in, or you have a situation like with Jerry Jones. Obviously, it's different with the Cowboys because Jerry Jones is the owner and the GM. But you have guys that obviously that was reported by Jane Slater in an interview during this week about how guys were going behind Jason Garrett's back, talking to Jerry Jones, texting him like, "Hey, like I can do what I want," kind of thing. And just like when you have friction within the front office, that kind of situation allows you can possibly have a situation because you can have guys that would go to the GM or the owner or whoever and talk bad about the coach because also that GM or that that personnel guy or that football operations guy also doesn't believe in the coach. So that you can talk bad about them, and doesn't create a cohesive team. And like I said, you just want unity from the top down. It sounds like, at least in some degree, they might have that this year, with everybody being on the same page on who it is that they want and getting a guy that it seems like they liked last year, and they're going to go with this year. So that'll be good for the Browns. Do I know how good of a head coach Kevin Stefanski will be? Not at all. I mean, no one does. So you don't really. It's hard to say whether he'll be good or bad. But at the very least, it seems like the front office and the ownership will have faith in him, which gives him more time. Because I think the biggest thing with the Browns is they just haven't had the guy no one has an instant success there. So because of that, they get impatient, and they fire people, and then you're overturning coaches and quarterbacks and all this other stuff time and time again. Like, if you look at Kyle Shanahan, this is his third year in San Francisco, I believe, and the first 2 years the team was not good. I mean, they had, the number 2 pick last year, in 2017, I think they had the number 2 pick, and they end up trading with the Bears. Oh, no, wait, no, that's 2017. 2018 and 20... Oh, okay, no, so that was 3 years ago. That was before he got there. But regardless, I forget how high they picked in 2018, but I know there was like a top 5, top 10 pick. So it takes time to build a successful football team. Very few people walk into a situation like Matt LaFleur did, where you have an all-time great quarterback and you have different pieces. You just need to add a little bit to the defense here and maybe a little bit to offense there, and then boom, you're a playoff caliber team. Like, that doesn't happen that often. Or a guy like Doug Peterson, where they just hit on all cylinders one year, and then boom, you're winning a Super Bowl with the backup quarterback. Even like Mike Tomlin back in the day with the Steelers, but then even you could say that was some of his success was because he had some of Bill Cowher's players still there. So I think the fact that Kevin Stefanski has the faith of the ownership, has the faith of the front office, will allow him to struggle. I mean, I think that's been the biggest issue with the Browns. They've been, as much as they struggled recently, they've just been too quick to get rid of people. And I mean, maybe Freddie Kitchens wasn't the right guy. I mean, he probably wasn't, but and Hugh Jackson probably wasn't the right guy either. But it's like, you never know if you don't give them 2, 3, 4 years. In my opinion. Like, obviously, the Giants did the same thing with Pat Shermer, but like at least he had been a head coach before, so you kind of knew what to expect there. Like, Kevin Stefanski's going to be a head coach for the first time. If he doesn't have a good year this first year, is that surprising? No. And it shouldn't be surprising to anybody that's associated with the Browns just because he's new. And the team was obviously 7-8 last year, or 7-9, or 6-10. Oh, how bad were the Browns this year? I think they were 6-10. Yeah, so I think the Browns were 6-10 this year. So he's not coming in. I mean, the team is talented, yes, but it's not like they were world beaters. I mean, they had high expectations, but the expectations don't manifest themselves on Sundays. You either win or you lose. Expectations don't really have much of a factor in terms of how you play in between the white lines for 60 minutes on Sundays. So, I think also probably those lower expectations coming into this year probably will benefit Kevin Stefanski and the Browns just because of the fact that due to last year, people know not to overestimate what the Browns are going to do. Yeah, they were 6-10. I had to double check for you guys. But they are not going to overestimate what the Browns could be or what they could do. So I think that was another thing that hurt them last year was the fact that people came and assumed that, oh, they're going to make the playoffs, or they're going to win the division, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, let's see them play together and win some games first before we just assume these type of things. And then, obviously, when they got off to a rough start, it was a big deal, and there was internal and external things, and then we had the season that they had. So I think this faith that the front office has in Kevin Stefanski should at least buy him some time to work through the growing pains of being a new head coach. And obviously, the people they put around him are going to be very important just to have some other coaching experience because he's only been a coordinator for like a year and like a little bit. And yeah, he's only been because this is his first full year, and last year he took over after they fired John DeFilippo. Mike Zimmer and the Vikings did. So this is his first full year, and obviously it was a good first full year. I mean, Kirk Cousins had a career year, and I think the two biggest guys that will be impacted by this are Baker Mayfield and Nick Chubb, because obviously seeing what Dalvin Cook was able to do in this offense should have Nick Chubb excited, though obviously they're not the same type of player, don't do the same exact things, but Nick Chubb is capable of carrying the ball inside, outside, and also catching the ball out of the backfield, which is what they did with Dalvin Cook. And then Baker will be helpful because they run a lot of play action. The Minnesota per PFF. This is from Cody Suk at WFNY Cody. He's a Browns writer. And Kevin Stefanski and per PFF Minnesota, led by Kevin Stefanski, utilized play action on 31.4% of their dropbacks with Kirk Cousins, which is the fifth most in the league. And Baker Mayfield had the highest completion percentage differential in the NFL on play action versus non-play action. He was 10.1% in terms of completion percentage better when they use play action. So this is going to be a play action every offense, and that is, at least based on this year, something that Baker Mayfield does well and something that the Browns should have utilized more. And that's the thing that the Vikings use a lot this year. And with a guy like Nick Chubb, that play action is going to be effective because whether or not they're running the ball well, and this is another thing that the Browns are going to want to be more analytically driven. And the analytics will tell you that you don't need to be successful running the ball to use play action and have it work, as was evidenced by the clip of Russell Wilson talking to the Seahawks offensive coordinator last week against the Eagles, which I talked about on the podcast. He was talking about how whenever they ran play action, the guys were running wide open. And the Seahawks couldn't run the ball worth a lick last week against the Eagles. So play action is not something that's dependent on how well you're running the ball. Just the threat of a good running back and a good running game will have play action work, and then obviously they have the receivers and tight ends to be successful doing it. So I think those two guys, Chubb and Baker Mayfield, should be the most happy because they're going to be utilized in ways that I believe should make them successful, and then thus will make the Browns and their offense more successful. I mean, they still have to shore some things up on the offensive line, shore some things up on the defense, but I think at the very least, them getting the guy they wanted, whatever that means, is good for the Browns. Because you don't want to, because it seems like in the past couple of years, as evidenced by Seth Wickersham, they've gotten a guy who maybe not everybody was all on board on, and that has led to some issues. So at least in this case, you have a guy that the analytics guys wanted. I mean, they don't have football guys because they don't have a GM, but like the ownership wanted. So at the very least, that's a good stepping board. Now you just got to figure out how good he's going to be, and we will find that out next year. But at the very least, he does things that the Browns should be good at, or the Browns players should be good at, and that should then make the offense better, and then obviously the team will be better and everyone will be more happy. Though, we'll see. We'll see, obviously, see whatever happens with Odell, see if they trade him or not. I don't think they should, but, I mean, if they do, then obviously that thing's a little different. I mean, the Vikings had Diggs and Thielen this year, mainly Diggs because Thielen was hurt, but they had their issues in the early part of the season with not getting the ball enough, but everyone was happy by the end. So I think they may go through some of those same growing pains, but eventually, I think Jarvis and Odell and whatever other receiver they have there, and Njoku and Nick Chubb and maybe Kareem Hunt if he's still there, should be happy with the offense they're running, and it'll be successful, and Baker will be happy, and everyone will be happy in Cleveland, and they might actually be above 500 for the first time in and I don't even know how many years it's been. I know they're the only team to not go 500 better in the last decade, which was quite shocking, but also it's the Browns, so not that shocking. So we will see how that turns out for them. And after this last break, we are going to talk about fandom, and specifically bandwagon fandom. And while I am not a bandwagon fan, I think they may be onto something about the way we should enjoy sports. And I'll explain to you what I mean by that right after this break.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC, Invicta FC, Bellator, and One Championship. We got the fights covered. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts. Past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
And we are back here once again on the GSMC Sports Podcast, put in by GSMC Podcast. So, what exactly is a bandwagon fan? As defined by WikiHow on the ways to identify a bandwagon fan. Bandwagon fans are defined as sports fans who have shown no past loyalty to a team and only support them when they are doing well. Now, most sports fans out there aren't bandwagon fans. Most of them are die-hard, loyal fans through and through. I know I am for the teams I root for. I imagine you guys out there are the same way for the teams that you root for. But bandwagon fans. Now, bandwagon fans have been around for a while, but at least in my eyes, they really got popularized with LeBron. LeBron was one of the first players, at least in this generation, I can't account for other generations, but in my generation, that accumulated a fan following that went wherever he went. So, I knew people in high school that switched teams when he switched teams to the Heat, and then obviously they switched back when he went to the Cavs, and now they're Lakers fans, all that fun stuff. And during that time, a lot of them got ridiculed, got shunned, all that good stuff for jumping teams. Even though the only reason why they were a fan of the Cavs in the first place was because of LeBron. But after thinking and more experiences in life and as a sports fan, I began to realize they may have been on to something. And this kind of thing really hit me because I'm an OKC Thunder fan, so this really hit me when over the summer when the whole Kawhi stuff went down and Paul George got traded, and then subsequently Russ got traded, and then they got back like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Danilo Gallinari and like a bunch of picks and blah 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 whatever. But it hit me because I was like, why do I support that team? Like, why? Like, I had to ask myself during that time because, like, one, I was just annoyed that they made the trade and they just gave into Paul George's needs. But secondly, it was because like I was like, all right, I've never been to Oklahoma City. I don't know anybody in Oklahoma City. I have no affiliation to the team, no affiliation to like the fan base, anything. The only reason I was a fan was because I liked KD in college. I thought he was the best player in the country, which he was. He won the Player of the Year. I thought he was going to be great in the pros, and I wanted to follow his career. So then I became a Sonics fan and then a Thunder fan because at the time I didn't really have a team because I was, he came to the league like, 07, 08, somewhere around there. So I was like, 07. I was, 12? Like 11, 12, 13? Like, I think it was like 12 at the time. So I didn't really have a team. I was a Nets fan when I was growing up because my dad's a Nets fan, but like after the kid and Richard Jefferson and Vince Carter and all those guys kind of disappeared, not disappeared, but like left the team, I was like, all right, I don't have any affiliation to this team outside of that anymore. So I didn't really follow basketball as much, and then KD brought me back. So that was the reason why. But at that point, as has been very well documented, KD is no longer on the team. Like, he went to Golden State, won 2 championships, now on the Nets. Like, why was I still there? And it was because of this sense of loyalty that we as sports fans have to these teams that don't care about us. Now, if you think about it, when you think about why you're a fan of whatever team you're a fan of, it's normally because, like, your dad liked them, or a cousin liked them, or uncle, or a grandparent, or you're from the area, you live in a certain area, you're like, all right, I'm going to root for the local team, blah, blah, blah. But a lot of that comes when you're a child. And as we know, when you're a child, you believe things or do things that you wouldn't do as an adult. But sports fandom is the only thing where you're not really allowed to change your mind. You're allowed to change your mind about the way you view the world, about your opinions on, like, politics, like money, working, like all these other aspects of your life. But sports is like, all right, you made a decision as a kid, now you're stuck. And I'm like, why is that? And I was thinking about the Thunder. I mean, I'm still a Thunder fan. Obviously, it's worked out this year because the team's more enjoyable to watch, and it's been in like the last 4 to 5 years. And I thought about like the way like LeBron fans had done it, and I'm just like, maybe bandwagon fans are on to something. Because in theory, sports are supposed to be fun and enjoyable and escape from your normal life. Do you sit down for a couple hours, watch your team, hope that you win? If you win, you're happy. If you lose, you're not as happy. But like, it's supposed to be a fun and enjoyable experience. But for most sports fans, their sports fandom is not fun or enjoyable. As I mentioned, I'm a Thunder fan. I've watched the team not make it out the first round of the playoffs the last 3 seasons since KD left. Before KD left, I saw them blow a 3-1 lead to Golden State Warriors, the only team that really could beat them in the West. Before then, I saw them not make it to the finals because Serge Ibaka was playing on one leg with like a calf injury. The year after that, I saw them not make the playoffs because of an AD double clutch 3 that he barely made, and the entire team basically hurt for most of the season. The year before that, I saw Russ tear up his knee because Pat Beverly dove at his knee during the timeout for a loose ball, and that was probably the best team the Thunder have ever had. They were going to win the championship that year. You cannot convince me otherwise. They were the 1 seed. They were going to they beat the Rockets easily. They were going, even after trading James Harden, they were going to beat the Grizzlies. Would have beaten like the Spurs or whoever. It didn't really matter. Probably would have beaten the Heat because they would have been better prepared for that stage. Regardless, the year before that, again, they get to the finals. They lose, even though they should have been up 2-0 after LeBron fouled KD on a baseline jumper to end Game 2 that they didn't call. He ended up missing. I'm not bitter at all, as you can tell. and it's just like, it goes on and on. And I think about like most sports fans, that's all they, if you think about most sports fans' memories of their team, 90% of them are bad, agonizing memories. Like if say you're a fan of the Texans, like this loss today, I'm sorry to bring them back up again so soon, but you were up 24-0 in a game that if you win, you have host an AFC Championship game in Houston for a shot at the Super Bowl. And you blow a lead. And you don't just like blow a lead like slow, like agonize, like it kind of just like, it goes on and on. Like you blow it almost as quickly as humanly possible, in that you gave up 28 points in a quarter, 4 touchdowns in a quarter. But on top of that, you allowed 41 unanswered points and were outscored 51-7 over the last 3 quarters. Like that is a collapse of epic proportions. That's something you may never get over. It's going to be hard to get over until they win a Super Bowl, and even then, you still might not get over it. Think about the Saints. Saints fans have watched their team lose on the last play of their season 3 years in a row. 2017 Minneapolis Miracle, pure luck. The guy just happens to whiff on the tackle and then take out the only other guy capable of bringing down Stephon Diggs. The year after that, the Rams game goes to overtime. They lose in overtime after the missed pass interference call that was blatant and obvious that they just didn't call. I know Saints fans probably still aren't over that, and I understand why. I wouldn't be over it either. And then they lose in overtime after Drew Brees throws the pick and all that fun stuff. This year, they lose in overtime to Kirk Cousins because their quarterback didn't play well. And yeah, they just lose. Like the last play of their season is watching Kyle Rudolph push off on their corner in the corner of the end zone for a touchdown. In New Orleans, mind you. So that's the way their season's ended, 3 straight years. And that's just something that we just accept that we have to deal with as sports fans. Who else? The Dodgers. If you're a Dodgers fan, you watch your team get to the World Series, lose, get to the NLCS and lose, get to the NLDS and lose. You've seen your best pitcher and one of the best pitchers of all time fold up in the biggest moments year after year. It doesn't really matter the situation, it's going to happen. And it's unfortunate. If you're back to Houston, if you're an Astros fan, you watch them lose a World Series in which they lost 4 games at home. They got home field advantage, lost all 4 games at home to lose the World Series. You just win one of those 4 games and they win the World Series. Nope, can't happen. Who else? If you're a Browns fan, you watched your team many years ago leave in the middle of the night, go to Baltimore. The team comes back and now has been a laughingstock in the league for 20-plus years. And like no end to that in sight, really. Because this is supposed to be the year, and then they were still a disaster. Different coaches, different GMs, different quarterbacks, doesn't matter, all the same. Who else? Mets. My dad's a Mets fan as well, so I've paid attention to the Mets a little bit. Haven't won a World Series since '86. Find different ways to disappoint you by like July or August every year. Went a couple years there in like the late 2000s of losing on the last game of the season to where if you win you get to the playoffs. One year I remember Tom Glavine, I don't think he made out the first inning. Like it was just a complete disaster. Even when they do play well, the NLCS, they get there. Andy Chavez makes one of the greatest catches of all time. No one even cares because Carlos Beltran looks at strike 3 on the outside corner and they lose in the NLCS at home. It is what it is. And yeah, like I'm saying, you can go through your sports fandom, and unless you're like a Boston fan that's been born in the last 20 years, a majority of your sports teams have been disappointments for most of your life. That's just a fact. That's just a fact. Like, I'm also an Eagles fan. I've watched them disappoint, win a Super Bowl one year where it basically took our entire fan base selling our soul after our starting quarterback got hurt so that we could win with a backup quarterback, and then that created its own disaster. So was it really worth it? I don't know. But I would always prefer to have the Super Bowl, and most fans would too. But again, that took basically our entire fan base, quote-unquote, selling our souls to get that Super Bowl, because as you've seen with our team, we've been ravaged by injuries since then. And I'm just like, they've been around, they won NFL championships before, so they've been around for forever, the Eagles have. Won 1 Super Bowl. We're about to play the 54th Super Bowl in a couple weeks. They've won 1 of them. The most any franchise has won in terms of Super Bowls is 6. 6. And there's been 54, so that means 48 other years if they were around for all 54 Super Bowls. 40 other years they've ended in disappointment. for the excitement of 6 Super Bowls. And one of those teams is the Patriots, who've only really been really this good for 20 years. So before then, they weren't really much. After then, who knows what they'll be. But that's what we're talking about. We're talking about a 20-year period where they've won 6. And that's a lot. 6 is a lot of Super Bowls. The Warriors they've won like, what, 3? They won like 3 in 4 years. And that's a lot. And then, but before then, they didn't win anything. Or not anything for a while. And you're supposed to just be, I mean, again, all those championships and stuff are great. But when you think about it, sports are just like, you just will go through every season and hope your team does not disappoint you in the most heart and gut-wrenching way. That's basically all you're doing as a sports fan, because 99% of our seasons end in disappointments. You just hope that your season doesn't end in the worst possible way. And very rarely does that not happen. Like, generally speaking, like, your team finds ways to lose. If your team, like, is good enough to make the playoffs, they find ways to lose in excruciating ways. Like, most teams don't just get, like, blown out of the playoffs, especially not in football, at least. Because maybe in the other sports you might get swept or whatever. Like, all right, you never really stood a chance. In a one-game playoff, very rarely do teams just get their doors blown off. And you're just like, oh, okay, we never had a shot. Very rarely you did have a shot, and then you just found ways to screw it up, and then you just have to live with that for 8 months until the next season starts and hope it doesn't happen again. Like the Ravens. Well, they got blown out a little bit, but, like, Ravens had a great season. All for nothing. Literally nothing. Great season. You go 4 months, go 14-2. Everything's great. Go get your bye. Come first playoff game, divisional round, home game, and the team doesn't even show up. And you're just like, what? Like, what did I do to deserve this? I mean, think of all the Falcons fans out there. Think about them for a second. They watch their team go to a Super Bowl, get up 28-3 on the hated Patriots. You're like, oh my goodness, we could really do this. If you're a Falcons fan, I'm saying this. We could really do this. And then what happened? You know what happened. I know what happened. And it's just, you can't erase that. Like, that's a part of NFL history and a part of your team's history for forever. There's nothing you can do about it. Anytime you mention to anybody, oh, you're a Falcons fan, that's the first thing they're going to think of. And that's going to happen even after they win a Super Bowl. I think that's going to be the thing people remember about the Falcons, that, oh, they were the team that blew a 23 lead in like a quarter and a half to lose the Super Bowl in overtime. Like that happened, and that's going to be what they're remembered for. And it's just like, why do we put ourselves through this as sports fans? Sports is supposed to be fun. Sports are supposed to be an escape. Why do we put ourselves through this agony year after year after year? For what? What is the purpose? And that's where I bring it back to bandwagon fans. Bandwagon fans, while being ridiculed for doing this, may have had the right idea. Sports is supposed to be fun. And what is fun? Winning. Bandwagon fans support winners, or support their team when they are winning, because that's when it's enjoyable to be a sports fan. When your team is 0-8 to start the season, what about that is fun? Why are you tuning in to watch those games week after week? Explain that to me. Why do we do this to ourselves? I know Giants fans. My dad's a Giants fan. They went on a franchise record losing streak, and yet I know him and other Giants fans were tuned in week after week after week, thinking, "Oh, this is gonna be the week we get the win," and it didn't happen for a while. And it's just like, why do we do this to ourselves? Why? Sports is supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be enjoyable, and we live through. And most of our time as sports fans is spent disappointed and heartbroken. And it didn't have to be this way. If we didn't shun bandwagon fans in the beginning, more of us could be bandwagon fans. It's too late for me. It's too late for most of you out there. But it could have been. That could have been us. We could have been the ones following LeBron wherever he went. We could have been the ones only supporting our team when we start out 4-0, and then once we lose 4 straight, we're 4-4, we go back into hiding. Because it's more fun that way. Like I said, it's too late for me. I don't think I can ever be a bandwagon fan. I'm too deep into this stuff at this point now. But I do believe going forward, more, especially the younger generation, will be more bandwagon fans, because people like players like that. You watch sports because you want to watch players. Unless you live in a sports town where it's like Philadelphia or like Boston or like maybe not even Los Angeles, because they don't really have diehard fans outside of the Lakers. You live in like a Minnesota or something where like that sports are the big thing. Like, I think there'd be a lot more bandwagon fans, because your kids would be like, oh, I like this player, oh, I like that player, let me go root for them. And that's okay. I understand why they would be like that, because you're watching the sport to be entertained and to be happy. What makes you happy watching your team win and watching your player do well? So I get it. So when you see a bandwagon fan out there, you hear about a bandwagon fan, don't shun them. Don't ridicule them. Listen to them. Understand what they're coming from and why they're doing such a thing, and maybe you too will be like, all right, it's too late for me, but I get it. And I think that's where I'm at right now. I get it. I understand why bandwagon fans are bandwagon fans. It's more fun to be a sports fan that way. We didn't sign up for the heartbreak. We didn't sign up for the ridicule. We didn't sign up for the agonizing defeat and the disappointment that comes with it. We didn't sign up for that. That's not why we became fans of these teams. We became fans of these teams because we wanted to watch a sport that we enjoy and be happy doing it. And yet, that is not how we spend most of our time. But bandwagon fans is how they spend their time, and I get it. I get why people are bandwagon fans. It took me a while to come around, but I get it. Like I said, it's too late for me. I can't do it. Just personally, my mind and my brain, the way I'm wired, it just wouldn't work. But I get it, and I understand bandwagon fans, and I will not ridicule them, because I understand. Like, I just get it. That's the way that's the way we all should have been sports fans. It's more fun that way. Honestly, it's more enjoyable. But like I said, it's probably too late for you. I know it's too late for me. But if you run into a bandwagon fan again, just pat them on the back and just be like, all right, yeah, come on, let's go watch this game together. Because who cares? Who really cares at the end of the day? Does it matter when they became a fan or how they became a fan or why they became a fan? You're all rooting for the same thing. Who cares? Just watch the game together and hope the team wins. It's not really that serious at the end of the day. It really isn't. Just because they weren't there through the heartbreak doesn't make the win for them any less enjoyable. And doesn't make it any less enjoyable for you either. Like, I could care less if they were bandwagon Eagles fans when they won the Super Bowl. I was just thinking about the fact they won the Super Bowl. None of that other stuff mattered to me. They won the Super Bowl. I was happy for that. I could care less about who wasn't the Eagles fans and said they were now after they won. Like, why does that matter? Why does that matter to me? It shouldn't. Let them be fans the way they want to be fans. I'll be fan the way I want to be fans. And we'll all just enjoy ourselves that way. But that'll do it for me here today on the GSMC Sports Podcast, written by GSMC Podcast Network. As always, if you haven't already, subscribe to the podcast. Make sure you're up to date on all the episodes that we drop. Make sure you never miss one. If you can, please give us a 5-star rating and review. It's very appreciated. Allows us to see what you guys like, what you guys don't like, and all that fun stuff. If you're on social media, we're on social media, so find us there. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, like us on Facebook. We can talk about there. If you're a sports fan and want to vent about the stuff that your teams put you through, I'm all ears. We're all ears. So we can talk about it there. We can talk about anything else on the show. You can tell me about why you think Clemson's going to beat LSU and why they're going to win by 20 points. All that fun stuff we can talk about on social media. So yeah, find us there. And as always, I have been Chris Blades. Until next time, peace out.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.